Hello, everybody. How are you doing? How are you doing? This is the S. Anthony Thomas. This is the S. Anthony Says podcast, episode number 484. I'm going to call this episode Relationships Are Marathons. That's what I'm going to call it. Relationships are marathons. I'm going to dive right into this, okay? Now, I know you've been in a situation where you've overheard somebody's conversation or you've seen something that reminded you of a time in your past. Like when you watch a television program and a guy sees something happening, there's this dream sequence where the screen gets all wavy, and then there's a younger version of him making a similar mistake to the person that he's watching, or having a similar thing happen to him or her as the person that they're watching. And that happened to me recently. And by recently, I mean Saturday. Right? I'm in a corner store in my neighborhood and I'm waiting in line, and there's always somebody in line taking too long. There was a couple of people behind me. Excuse me. He's a couple of people behind me, and he's on the phone, and it's very, very obvious from the conversation that we could not help but to hear, because he's one of those guys that learned how to whisper in a helicopter factory. I know that's an old thing to say, but you get what I'm saying. He's loud. And he's on a video call. Right? And he's pacing back and forth as he's talking to a significant other on the phone. It's obvious by looking at him that he's a young man, early 20s. And it's obviously the woman on the phone that he's talking to is either in her late 20s, early 30s. And it's very easy to see who has control in this relationship. It's not 50-50. It's not mutual respect. It's him being dragged around by his nose. Now, I couldn't judge this guy as a middle-aged guy. Now, I couldn't judge this guy because 30 years ago, that guy was me. I know what it's like. I'm going to take you back a few years. I'm going to take you back a few years. And because I'm an older person, not a young person, but not old yet, but not young, and I'm talking about me at 17 years old, I got to go back. In fact, I have to say it a whole bunch of times because I'm not young anymore. Back. Okay? Started doing stand-up comedy when I was 17 years old, got good at it really quickly. And when I turned 18 years old, by the time I was 18 years old, I was really good at it. I was working professionally. And so I'm standing on stage in front of 200 people, 300 people, whatever the average size of a comedy club was at the time. I think it's about 250. Some clubs held 400, some clubs held 150, some clubs held 200, but usually about 250 is about the size. And there's a lot of power standing on stage for a long period of time, telling your jokes and stories and having the people in the palm of your hand, clapping, stomping their feet, standing ovations, chanting your name. There's a lot of power. You're on the stage. Everyone's looking at you. You've got the microphone. They're enthralled with your stories. They're leaning forward. And when you're on that stage, it's almost like magic. Especially if you're a beautiful lady and you see this guy on stage commanding all of these people, commanding them. Now, as an 18-year-old guy, I was used to having sex with other 18-year-olds, okay? 18, 19-year-olds, because they were the ladies that were my age. And now I'm at the comedy club, and the ladies I'm around are 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And to them, if I'm there, fair game. And I was, in fact, fair game. Oh, yeah. So the ladies I dated weren't ladies my age. They were ladies in their mid to late 20s. A couple of them were almost 30. A couple of them were 30, right? Not at the same time. It was like, this one and this one and this one and this one. But one in particular, she was 10 years older than me. Oh, yeah. And when you're 18 years old and you're having a physical relationship with someone who's 10 years older than you, and they're shockingly beautiful, you're just happy to be there. You're just happy to be there. Yeah. You don't have any ties on them. You don't care what they do when you're not there, because hey man, I'm just happy to be here, man. It's like getting a free ticket to the best show in town. You're not going to come back the next day. Hey man, I was here last time. I had a ticket. Can I just come back in again? No, you just be happy you were there. And that's how I was with this particular lady. But as time went on and I turned 19 and then 20, and then 21, all of a sudden, when you're 21 and you're dating ladies who are still a little older than you, 28, 29, maybe 30, you're an older guy, but you're still a young guy. And now you want a girlfriend. You want to have a serious relationship. You're not saying you want to get married, but you do in fact want to have a serious relationship. And unfortunately, the same thing applied. They just didn't want that. At least I thought that they wanted it, but they didn't want it. This particular one didn't want it. She didn't tell me, though, which was the problem. I'm really thinking I have a girlfriend. She'd pick up the phone when I called. She'd call me. We'd hang out a lot. But then all of a sudden she started to grow a little more distant. But I realized she is a professional, and sometimes she goes out of town for work, and she got a lot of clients she's got to deal with as a sales, whatever the hell she was doing. Not a problem. And I realized, well, she's not being distant. She's just busy. It's the end of the month. And that's when sales are out there. They got to really just pound down to make sure they get their quotas down and all that kind of stuff. So I accepted it at the end of the month. Then it started in the middle of the month. And then it was the whole month. And all of a sudden I started noticing there was some distance there, right? Even when we wanted to get physical, it was great. But then afterwards she had to do something. And sometimes we didn't even get to do that. And I'm going, wait a minute, what's going on? As it turned out, my greatest fear at the time was true. She was now seeing someone else. 21-year-old me, I think it was 20 or 21, I can't remember, was not enough for her because I didn't make as much money as 34-year-old him. He was making real money. I was doing okay, but I wasn't doing as well as him. Oh no. This guy was 13 years older than me. Ooh, he's 34, I'm 21 or something like that, right? She's 28, so she's closer to his age. Their age discrepancy made more sense than ours, right? If you're looking from the outside, but I didn't know that, didn't care about it at the time. I was just, hey, that's my girlfriend, man. And I found out that she was seeing this guy. She wasn't going on any kind of trips for work. Only thing she was working on was that dude in a hotel in the downtown section of the city. Oh no. And at that time, I actually would have the capacity, I should say the stupidity, to accept those type of things and try to fix it. I found out about it, and instead of confronting her and telling her, I'm the heck out of here, never call me again, dagnabbit, I didn't do that. I tried to convince her she should be with me. But see, ladies will check out of the relationship and break up with you mentally and emotionally before they break up with you physically. She had already mourned the loss of the relationship. She had mourned the loss and she had already moved on, but she didn't want to break my heart. And she also still wanted me to, do stuff to her, if you understand what I'm saying. But I tried to figure out what was going on. And then she started telling me, well, we've been together for a little while now and it's getting kind of stagnant, it's kind of boring and he's exciting and he's fun and we go on trips and and she's talking about all the stuff she did with the other guy. And I realized even then that the word love bombing, I don't know if it existed back then, but I used to call it pouring it on because that's what you do in the beginning of a relationship. You pour it on. And during our conversation, I found out that this guy is actually married with children, and she thinks he's going to leave his wife for her. Ooh. I know how that's going to end. I know it's going to end badly. And there was a part of me knowing that it was going to end badly, knowing how much my soul was crushed by her betrayal, knowing that she was going to get the same feeling. There's a part of me that was kind of happy because I knew that the ticking time bomb was already set in motion. I knew that the bomb that was going to be in her relationship was going to blow up. I knew this guy wasn't going to want to lose half his assets. Oh no, I shouldn't say half his assets. I should say half the assets because his wife was with him from the beginning. She wasn't somebody that came along later on when he was already established. She was there when he was building whatever he was building. So half of it does in fact belong to her, and he did not have a prenuptial agreement. So if you think he's going to give up half of the assets just because he had access to her assets, you're crazy. And even me, younger than her, knew that, but she was blinded by the excitement. This episode is called Relationships Are Marathons for a reason. Because relationships are marathons. When you're running a marathon, you don't run full speed for the marathon. You have to figure out a way I need to run 26.2 miles. And whatever energy I have in my body from carbo loading the last night, I got to make that last for 26.2 miles. So, of course, there's no period of time during a marathon where you're going to be running at full speed. You can't, because if you do, you're going to burn out. I was trying to run a marathon with her, but she was more excited by the sprint she was running with him. She's comparing my marathon speed to his sprint speed. He was just running as fast as he can